Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, Math Made Easy with Terry in 10 minutes. We're going to talk about complex numbers. I'm going to introduce it in this video. Then after that, the subsequent video, we're going to dive into it and we're going to talk about the symbols, we'll talk about how to solve it and the rest of it. Okay, so before I proceed, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you've not clicked the notification bell, I don't know what you're waiting for. Please do so that when I post new videos, you'll be the first person to know. All right, so the first thing is that when grouping symbols, you have something like square root of -1, okay? And something like this arises. You usually say, oh, there is no solution when you're dealing with real numbers. So for example, when we have x squared plus 1 and equal to 0, and we had x squared minus 1 is equal to 0. Now, when we're solving quadratic equation, when we're solving this one, we take 1 to the other side. We had x squared is equal to 1. Then we now take the square root of both sides, plus or minus. So it's going to be x. This will cancel that. Will be equal to plus or minus square root of 1. And therefore, x will be equal to 1 or minus 1. Are you seeing it? Now, but when we have something like this, we have x squared plus 1 equal to 0. And we're solving quadratics, and we usually say with real numbers. So we had x squared is equal to -1. So we took 1 to the other side. Okay. So we now take the square root of both sides. This will cancel that. This is plus or minus. So x is going to be plus or minus square root of -1. And when we had something like this in quadratics, we said there is no solution, because there's no solution, but we can solve this here. So now we can now solve this. We're going to use what we call the complex number system. All right. So we'll have what we call imaginary numbers. So we're going to talk about how to solve questions like this. All right. So because I know students do take note, I'm going to write what I just said. All right. So I'm going to write it down so that you can take note of it in your book as well. So the first thing is that when grouping of symbols, okay, such as square root of -1. So when you're grouping symbols and something like square root of -1 arises, so to which there is no corresponding quantity, okay? So there's no corresponding quantity. We must ask ourselves why. So sometimes when we have stuff like this, you have to ask yourself why. So we talked about this in quadratic equation. When we get something like this, we now say, oh, we solve and we get square root of -1. We're gonna say there is no solution, or we cannot find it, and stuff like that. So we know that square root of -1 can have no quantity associated. So you can have no quantity associated with it. All right, so we call it an imaginary number. Okay, so this is what we're going to use, the term. So the quantity associated with this is what? An imaginary number. So, but this is completely different from the real numbers that we have. So it's different from those that we have when we're talking about quadratic equation, real numbers. So this is to distinguish it from those to which we can associate quantities. Okay, so those ones, these we call real numbers. So when we're talking about quadratic equation, we use the term real numbers, but now we're in this series, we're going to be using imaginary numbers. Is that okay? All right, so let me just do a quick reminder before we go to the next video and start solving. So just a quick reminder, when we're in quadratics and how we solve questions. So for instance, when you had x squared minus 1 is equal to 0, you take 1 to the other side. So x squared is going to be equal to 1. In order to remove this x, we have to square both sides. Take the square root of both sides, and the square root, we know that it means plus or minus. Does that make sense? So, but the square root is going to cancel the square. So that means we're going to have x is going to be equal to plus or minus square root of 1. So based on this now, therefore, we can now say x is equal to the positive square root of 1 or the negative square root of 1. And then we now have x is going to be equal to 1 or minus 1. And that will be the answer for this. Now, but if we want to juxtapose this, okay, to x squared plus 1 is equal to 0, all right? You take 1 to the side, so you're going to have x squared is equal to minus 1, all right? So to get rid of this square root, we'll do plus or minus, and we'll do the square root as well, plus or minus. So this will cancel this, so we're going to have x is equal to square root of minus 1. Now remember, when we're talking in quadratic equation, we said this is what? No real root. Okay, we said in quadratic, this is no real root when we're solving quadratic. Okay, and we stopped there and we moved on. All right. But really, is this really the case? All right. Because now we can still solve it using complex numbers. So does that make sense? And that is why we have this topic here. So that means now, after we're done with this topic, when I give you something like square root of minus 4, you'll be able to get an answer. When I give you square root of minus 64, you're going to be able to get an answer. So that's the essence of why we're talking about what? Complex numbers. All right. So we're going to stop here. All right. So I'll not go too much into this. The next video, we're going to dive into it. So the next video, I'm going to talk about the symbols, all right, of complex numbers. I'm going to try to introduce the concept and let's see how we do with that. Is that right? So please don't forget to subscribe and click notification bell so that when we go to the next video, you'll be the first person to know. So when I upload it, you'll get a notification that I've uploaded the next video. All right. So I'm going to see you soon. I'm going to see you in the next video where we talk about the symbols of complex numbers. All right. So see you soon.